We're back, baby. It's the charity straw. I pitch you free throws because they are free. Fisher, Tosopoulos, DJ, Nikki, Snacks, Kreider. It's June 30th, Friday, Rebecca Black time, heading into the weekend. July 4th weekend we were talking about before, but it's almost like July 4th, 5-6 days. We have a very special guest, covers the Falcons for the Believe Network, does an absolute, honestly, kick-ass job doing so. Will McFadden joining the boys today, getting out of the Atlanta Heat in his house. Will, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. As you said, it's scorching hot down here in Atlanta, and let's hope that the Falcons pick up on that and they just keep it rolling right through the season. But I'm really excited to talk about this team with you guys because I kind of feel like nobody knows what to make of it, except for me, of course. So I'm excited to give you guys the lowdown.
Oh, nice. Very humble start out of you, my friend. Well, first, before we get into the Falcons, I see a map in your background. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, maybe this country included, what's your favorite country?
Ooh. I mean, this country included, like, I'm kind of biased a little bit, right?
Maybe you don't love it. I don't know. The climate's weird.
I've always wanted to go to Australia. Right. And I feel like that's a little bit of a basic answer, but they're the more like fun country. I feel like everybody's just down there. They get there having a good time. They understand the risks. It's a little bit of a like, hey, while we're here, let's enjoy it. So I think Australia for that reason is, and I mean, it's like I'm already used to the heat. Right. So let's just keep it going. And there's kangaroos. You can't beat kangaroos.
Have you been out to California?
Once, but I've loved California. I definitely want to get back.
From what I hear, Australia is California, just with an accent.
Well, there you go. But the accent is great, right? Can't be like it's up there. Probably my favorite accent of all time.
Yeah, but we have the coyotes and they have kangaroos. I would absolutely trade our animal for their animal. It's way sicker.
Yeah, but you pick up some spiders the size of your head, and you pick up some other things that you don't necessarily want to mess with.
Yeah, but let's get down and dirty in the down under. Speaking of getting down and dirty, our boy, former Texas Longhorn. It's a nice marriage right here because we cover the Horns as well on our Horns Up Talking Texas podcast. So we have literally watched Bijan Robinson every down since he's been a freshman. And now he is your starting running back. Were you surprised, excited on draft? I know as the days were going on, you guys kind of knew you were taking him, but was it a surprise based on what you thought the Falcons would do going into the draft? And how excited are you to have him there?
I'm very excited to have him here. It was a little bit of a surprise. I think, the way the timeline worked out for me, at least, was I dig into all this stuff, but kind of come late February, early March, you started seeing Falcons Twitter get excited about the possibility of Bijan Robinson. And I tried to throw some water on that really quickly and say, look, you have Tyler Algier, who just set the rookie rushing record for this franchise, 5th round pick. This team loves its value, which, we'll talk about here in one second with Bijan, but it just didn't make sense for me. But then as I started digging in more to Bijan and seeing all of the versatility that he would bring to this offense, that's when it really started to kind of click in terms of how he would fit with this group. And then when you started really seeing the drumbeat of Atlanta likes Bijan, Atlanta likes Bijan, Atlanta likes Bijan, that made it a little bit simpler. They have gone offense, all 3 first-round picks since Arthur Smith took over. So, maybe he's stacking his cupboard that he gets a direct hand in. But no, I'm very excited that Bijan is here.
Are you disappointed that they've gone? And this is a team first of all, AJ Terrell has been nice at the cornerback spot, but outside of that, they really haven't homered on at least early first-round draft picks on the defensive side of the football. Are you a little suspect and disappointed that they've gone tight end, wide receiver, running back in the first round the last 3 years, all in the top 10?
When you say it like that, it's quite the list. When you go receiver or tight end, receiver, running back in the top 10, by and large, if you just put Team X next to that track record, you'd probably be like, what are these guys doing? The cap situation that the Falcons have been in kind of, I think, plays into that a little bit. They knew the defense was not good. The defense has not been good for a long time here in Atlanta. And that's really hard to fix unless you're in a preeminent draft with a lot of top edge guys, which I think last year was more akin to that than it was this year. But the Falcons kind of were on the outside looking in when you had guys going right in front of them that they would have probably taken.
Sure.
This year, I think the big thing is Jalen Carter, right? Like, why didn't they decide to pull the trigger on a Georgia defensive lineman who a lot of people considered the best, maybe overall talented player outside, remove position out of it in this draft class? So they're always going to, I think, be tied to that a little bit. If Atlanta's offense was kind of doing gangbusters through the air, I think that I wouldn't have as much of a hard time with the Kyle Pitts, Drake London selection. I think all of this is going to be kind of tied together this year. The quarterback obviously plays into the production of those two guys, but Drake London on a kind of per snap basis was awesome last year. And Kyle Pitts as a rookie, you kind of saw what he could do with a competent quarterback in Matt Ryan. So a lot of it comes back to Desmond Ridder, right? And I think that part of the reason they took Bijan Robinson was to alleviate some of that pressure on the second-year quarterback. But, I'd like to see them add to the defense. I would like to see them turn this defense around, but I think they've kind of done that in free agency. So as much as I was surprised they went offense for the third year in a row, I think when you wrap your mind around the totality of what they did this offseason, they did set themselves up to be able to do so in the drafts with being able to take Bijan Robinson because of what they did in free agency on defense.
Let's stay on the topic of Desmond really quickly. How much flexibility do you think you have there? I mean, how long is the leash? How long are you going to give him? If it's not the guy, when do you start to reevaluate? What do we do at quarterback?
I think you're going to get worst case scenario, probably like 5 or 6 games out of Desmond Ridder. I say worst case scenario, like if they're 1-5, 1-4, something like that. I think that's when you probably see them really look at Taylor Heineke and kind of start, rotating him in there, because there's a reason they brought in a player like Taylor Heineke and then paid him, as much as they did. It's because there's a little bit of an unknown, I think, from the team side in Desmond Ridder. Sure, they've seen him way more than we have. However, they have not seen him outside of those 4 games kind of go in and out of game situations. All right, on the sideline, like, we need to adjust. This isn't working. Can we scrap this? What can you do? All of those contingency plans. I'm really curious to see kind of what a Desmond Ridder based offense looks like, because they plugged him into an offense that they really built around Marcus Mariota, and they started to kind of slowly transition that offense to fit what Desmond Ridder does well, kind of in that 4-game sample. But that's a 4-game sample, guys. Like, that's so small. And so I do think that a lot of this is going to fall on Desmond Ridder early. They're going to help him out, but I think they're going to want to see, because I think they'll be kind of quick to go to Taylor Heineke if, it's clear that Desmond Ridder can't reach the postseason. If there's a chance that he can, I think they'll stick with him and roll it out through the season. And if they end up making it at like 9-8 and get into the postseason, but Desmond Ridder is your starting quarterback, I think they'll take that. I think they view this as a young quarterback who is growing and maturing. The worst case scenario for Atlanta, as I've said, is probably going like 7-10 again. Like that's just the absolute worst case scenario for them to be. But I think there's a lot of confidence that Desmond Ridder will help them avoid that.
Right. And if it's the case, though, where it's the worst case scenario, or if it's even worse than that, and they're picking the top 10 again, do you go out and get a quarterback next year?
I think at that point you absolutely do. I think especially if Arthur Smith and Terry Fontenot are around, and I have every expectation that they will be, I think at that point you say, we've kind of done a lot of the other stuff over these 3 years that we needed to. We've helped the depth on defense. We've added some of these premier young players at the skill positions, but the time is ticking on those guys. I mean, by the time next year rolls around, Kyle Pitts will be entering the 4th year of his rookie contract. They've got the 5th year option. I expect they'll pick that up on all of these guys. But yeah, the clock is ticking and the quarterback is the final piece. So if Desmond Ridder doesn't prove that he's the guy this year, kind of why wait? Go out and do what you need to get a Caleb Williams.
I actually don't. Now that we're talking about this, and just kind of, the questions that are being thrown around there, I don't necessarily hate that process. We talk about it all the time of like teams starting with the quarterback, and then they're on the clock with their quarterback to try to find players and move players in that, A, prove the quarterback's the guy, B, move players in that window to surround the quarterback with top tier veteran talent, and then C, like your window shrinks because eventually you have to pay the quarterback who becomes the biggest dollar on your book. Right now, they're in a position where they're getting everybody around the quarterback, seeing if all of that works. And if it does, then then their clock starts way later. Technically, yes, you'll have to make a decision on Drake London. You'll have to make a decision on Kyle Pitts, and eventually, I know we're only entering his rookie season. We have ways to go, but Bijan Robinson. But having that kind of timeline, look, there were games and we saw it. Shout out Braun Husenstam, president and CEO of Believe Network, who is a major Falcons fan for obvious reasons. We got to see a lot of the Falcons up close and personal in the studio, and then we saw them at a game, and they were in a lot of the games, even the games they lost. Like they lost a lot of one-score close games, and I think if a lot of those things go a different way and you get a better quarterback in there than Mariota who could close games and the defense picks up. I mean, look, you say you guys went in free agency and you got Jesse Bates, who was the top safety in free agency. You got a Bud Dupree in the mix. Campbell's a nice veteran piece, obviously, on the defensive line. So all these guys coming in there is somewhat helpful. But I do think, if it gets that point, you're also not in a bad position. It's not like, fire alarms, DEFCON 5. You just go in and you take a quarterback in the top 10.
Yeah, I mean that's there are kind of like two ways to do this, right? The first is, okay, you draft your rookie quarterback and you get them kind of the clock starts ticking right then, right? You've got 5 years of this really valuable asset. Hopefully, that quarterback works out, but then cool, we're going to take these savings up front and then we're going to figure out how to maximize this young player and these savings by maybe going out and adding veteran wide receivers, veteran offensive linemen, running back, things like that. And you build around them kind of in free agency. The Falcons are doing a little bit of piecemealing and doing both free agency, although that's then mostly on the defensive side of the ball, and then adding players kind of to build out the rest of their roster. Yeah, they've drafted a quarterback. They've got Desmond Ridder, but you're not necessarily tied to him. They did get good value for him in that they didn't have to take a quarterback in the first round. And they were able to kind of pass along, I think, some of those savings into a quality backup quarterback in Taylor Heineke. So that all does point to year 3 being the year that we've all in Atlanta kind of said, all right, you reach the postseason. Like, let's go get to the playoffs here in year 3. So I think a lot of that is kind of tied to that desire and request from the fan base. However, I do think that a lot of it is, as you just mentioned, Josh, they've built out a lot of the infrastructure around the quarterback position that they're not necessarily tied to. And so now you're in a much different boat than you were in kind of taking over for Matt Ryan and being in a little bit more of a threadbare situation. Now, if you're going to take a rookie quarterback or bring in maybe a younger quarterback who hasn't succeeded somewhere else, you're going to put them in a situation where they've got much more of a team around them and can help them win these one-score games. Because as you said, they were in a lot of one-score games, not only this past year, but the year before that under Arthur Smith. And so now you're just hoping that with a little increase in the talent level, and not necessarily your stars, but the 4th or 5th guy on your offense or defense, is that guy better now? And I think the answer to that is yes. So that should hopefully get the Falcons over that hump in these one-score games. And then they'll figure out the quarterback situation, whether that's Desmond Ridder or, somebody to be named. But I think they like where they're at.
Okay. Let's go to the running back spot, though. So that's where. Oh, sorry, Alex. Were you going to hop in there?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to ask Will about the chatter of expectation for this team, because you mentioned, 9 wins and feasibly in the NFC that actually could get you to the playoffs. Mm-hmm. But in my mind, a 9-win team that's getting to the playoffs versus an 11 or 12-win team that's getting to the playoffs is very, very different. And there's an expectation for a team that wins 12 games that they should get much deeper in the playoffs than a team that gets 9 games. So are we eating small meal by small meal here and looking ahead to see that there is a bright future, but we have to take it one step at a time? And the one thing that I'll say in taking it one step at a time, and eventually I do want to hear what you have to say about the expectations and just the chatter and the rumor mill around the locker room, around the city in regards to that. But not a lot of other teams have the same luxury as it seems that you're kind of communicating about the Falcons of time, where Josh, you're saying, is it better to go get the quarterback first or the other pieces first? A lot of times you don't have that decision to make. It's made for you, right? It's the fact that we're saying that Arthur Smith could not make the playoffs and still have a job next year is in and of itself a real luxury. So yeah, I just love to hear what you have to say about the expectations that you've heard about this team for themselves?
You know, it's really interesting because I was on a bachelor party this past weekend and I was getting kind of a lot of the same
Nice,
types
dude.
of questions. Thanks. Yeah, you just throwing that out there casually. Yeah, I've got
Where
friends.
was it?
Asheville.
Nashville? Nice. Fun time.
Yeah, so we were talking a lot about, okay, so they make the playoffs. Sure. But like, what if they lose in the first round? What then? And I'm a little bit, flabbergasted, I guess, by that type of reaction, because it's kind of like, okay, sure, but like, isn't reaching the playoffs after not being in the playoffs for going on like 6 years now? Like, can't we just take that first step, right? Like, can't they just taste that? It's important for a team to understand what that's like, right? To get into the postseason, to be in the mix with veterans who have been there before, but some who never have, and you understand the urgency of it all. I think the Falcons reaching the Super Bowl in 2016 with a lot of players who were rookies. If you remember, they started, I think, 4 rookies in the Super Bowl, which set a record on defense. I kind of think that was a little bit poisoning to the mentality in the locker room, because it's hard. It's really, really hard to win in the NFL, and to just kind of reach the mountaintop in year one or early in your career. I think that maybe did a detriment to the overall success of the organization as it was in 2016. So even if they go, 9 and 8 or whatever, and reach the postseason, maybe they win one game, maybe they don't. But I think that's a worthwhile experience for a lot of people on this team as they continue to get better. And I view them a lot. I've been thinking a lot about the kind of like 2012 Seahawks team, right? Russell Wilson, obviously Marshawn Lynch was there, but that was kind of the first iteration of that Seahawks run that we then saw. And they played the Falcons in that wild card game, nearly beat them if Matt Bryan doesn't make a game-winning field goal. But like, they kind of needed that experience and that taste to then kind of get over that hump. I'm not going to say the Falcons are about to become kind of a dynasty the way that the Pete Carroll Seahawks were there at the beginning of the 2010s, but it's not dissimilar. Get that taste and then kind of understand what you're working towards when you get back into training camp the next year. And that's usually when I think we see teams make that big jump, is after they have that first little bit of postseason experience, then they come back and it's kind of full gas going to the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, as we say in Texas, a little all gas, no brakes for the Horns. But yeah, I mean, sometimes you have to brick by brick it, and like and be a little methodical with the process. It is a very winnable division, I would say. And I think, Alex, you said the other day that you're not ready to crown it the worst division in football, but they're going to have a shot to be at the bottom. I do want to get to Bijan. That is the title. Because I'm just very curious what you're hearing, what you're seeing, what you're thinking, how he's going to be utilized in this offense initially.
Yeah. I think, as I'm reading the title, the ceiling for Bijan, I mean, I like MVP. As high as any running back in the league this year. I mean, like, are we looking at a Jonathan Taylor type of breakout season just as a rookie? I know Jonathan Taylor did it kind of in year 2 there, but like that type of just, holy crap, this dude is automatically like, you look at the NFL top 100, is he going to make his debut there in the high 20? Like something like that, I think is definitely feasible for a Bijan Robinson, because and Danny Kelly of The Ringer had this stat, but basically it was like, of the 10 running backs taken in the top like 25 over the last decade or so, like 8 of them have been in the top 12 or something in terms of running back production in fantasy their rookie season. So basically these guys get drafted with a purpose. They get drafted with essentially their name kind of probably already on the playbook. Like they're already being factored into the mix. They're going to get a lot of touches. So Bijan coming into an offense that is already the most run heavy offense in the league, according to, the last season's totals, with, a play caller in Arthur Smith who understands the run game as well as anybody in this league, if not more so, and proven production. Now you're just adding kind of a sports car into the mix. And I really think that he is going to be the true kind of jack of all trades player. He's going to get touches every single game. I mean, wide receiver, running back, slot guy, utility player. He's going to have every single role for the Falcons. And so for that reason, like, he is going to be probably the most productive player on this Atlanta Falcons team when all is said and done. I mean, I would bet all my money on that right now before training camp even starts, that when we look at like the all-purpose yards, if Bijan Robinson is not number one for this Falcons team, then I think something has really gone wrong.
Yeah. Where are you drafting him in your fantasy leagues?
I mean, I would take him
three?
top 3 for sure. Yeah. And I would seriously consider him with that number 1 overall pick.
Wow.
I think, okay, we can talk about fantasy, then we'll get into the other rookie running backs in the past. I think from a fantasy perspective, we did our mock draft, like the three of us did like a first round mock draft, and I think he went 5, which again, like you're saying, he could go 1, and Mick's saying top 3. I don't think it's egregious. If you look at the other guys, like I think Eckler has the least amount of question marks throughout the years. Like he's always been pretty much consistently in that top 3. But CMC's production dropped when Elijah Mitchell headed back into the mix, and he's unfortunately been pretty injury prone throughout his career. Justin Jefferson in a PPR league is probably the safest bet from a wide receiver standpoint. But a guy like Bijan, like these rookie running backs and these year 1 guys always, like you're saying, come in and really show out. And I'm looking at the rookie running back stats right here. Computer number 2, like Zeke ran for 1,600 yards his rookie year and caught 300 yards and put in 15 touchdowns. Like, and he was the 4th overall pick. You had a guy, I mean, then you have guys like Alfred Morris, who honestly, I can't even believe is number 4 on this list with a 1,600 6th-round pick. But a guy like Saquon, who he's been most compared to, had 700 receiving yards as a rookie. And we've said this on our Horns Up show. As good of an offensive mastermind as Sark is and the plays he dials up, as good as Bijan was, he was heavily underutilized in the passing game at Texas.
Yeah. I mean, I think that – sorry, go ahead, Alex.
No, I was just going to say it's interesting. The Saquon Barkley thing is really, really interesting because while I certainly believe that Bijan could do that, I don't believe necessarily that that's the recipe for the Falcons to be winning games. And while you're saying that he should lead the team in all-purpose yards, you would hope that that margin isn't actually that like distinct between the next player and the next player, because I think what really I imagine why they want him to be this offensive engine for this team is to open things up for the other guys that we mentioned that they picked in the previous 2 drafts in the first round with top 10 picks, Drake London and Kyle Pitts, where if all 3 of those guys are working together and across the middle of the field, you have Pitts who then can make plays in the open field and make guys miss. That to me is the most enticing aspect of Bijan, is that he could unlock Drake London and Kyle Pitts for this team and then make Desmond Ridder make his job as easy as possible. And if it's not Desmond, then it's Taylor Heineke. And I'm not the biggest Desmond Ridder
winner,
fan,
bro. Heineke.
But Heineke's going to get it done. But I mean, look, I'm not the biggest Desmond Ridder fan, but I think that so much pressure is now alleviated because of Bijan. I'm with you on all the fantasy stuff, but I think like real talk football, like I would want that margin to not be that far. I wouldn't want Bijan to outperform all the rest of the players by 700 yards. Like it would be epic for me as a Texas Longhorn fan, but I think ultimately what's best for the team is for everyone on the offense to eat.
No, I mean, I think the real world applications, right, of adding a player like this, it's funny because you almost need players like this to make him as effective as he can be. Like what you're saying about unlocking Kyle Pitts and unlocking Drake London, in large part, they were drafted to kind of draw the attention of defenders and open up things for everybody else. They just haven't done a very good job of bringing in everybody else. Right. And so now as you're adding more and more versatility, when you truly do have options kind of at various spots who can do multiple things, and in a defender's mind, they have to now prepare for, okay, well, what if they hand the ball off to Bijan Robinson out of the backfield? What if they hand it off to him on a jet sweep? What if he motions jet sweep and then lines up in the slot and he has a free release on the nickel corner? Like just there's so much stuff that has to happen like that. And that's where you get really, I think, invested and interested in just the abilities of this offense. Whether or not they're like the highest scoring offense in NFL history or not, I think that we can put that over here. I think they're going to be one of the most fun offenses that we've ever seen, just because of the whole flexibility, puzzle piece nature to it. I mean, even adding somebody like Jonnu Smith this offseason is going to allow them to conceivably have like 2 tight ends and 3 running backs on the field and be perfectly comfortable going in a 5 wide situation. Like, that's what's going to be so much fun about the Falcons, is when you see what they line up in the huddle with, and it's going to be just a bunch of big dudes. And then they come out and there's no backfield or no running back in the backfield. There's no tight ends on the line of scrimmage, and they're fully in shotgun, just spread out. And it's still just a bunch of big dudes, and 3 of them are running backs and 2 of them are tight. Like, that's where I think adding Bijan and adding that element, you're right, Alex. He doesn't need to necessarily have 1,700 all-purpose yards and the next person has 1,000, right? But if he has like 850 rushing yards, 630 passing yard, like receiving yards, and then 9 touchdowns, I think a lot of people would be pretty excited about that rookie season, as long as you have Tyler Algier with 1,200 rushing yards and then Cordero Patterson with 1,000 of his own yard, like that type of deal. So it is not just one player. You're right.
We're talking about, but we're talking about 3 running backs having 1,000 all-purpose yards. I mean, that'd be pretty nuts. I do think that the most important, I mean, we all know the most important part of the field is the red zone. And now what this team can do in the red zone with these big bodies, like, first of all, you have Kyle Pitts and Drake London, and no shake against Algier, who had an amazing rookie season and is a bulldozer. But you kind of knew what was coming. It was a little bit of a Mariano Rivera cut fastball with those 2 guys in the mix when healthy. But now having Bijan, having Algier, having Drake London and Kyle Pitts, it's almost like the 7 different kinds of smoke that Arthur Smith can throw at you, and this team becomes a lot more dangerous. And you have Matt Collins.
And you have Ritter, who can run. If Ritter is your QB and he's a guy that can run in the red zone, I just looked it up, Josh, because I had the same thought. Touchdowns only, they were 55.5%. That was their efficiency mark in the red zone this past season. That was 14th in the NFL. This is a team with the weapons that they have. They should be a top 7 team in red zone efficiency. They have to score the ball when they get to that red area. And you're right. Well, and this is what makes this division so interesting to me, is this team on the field could be so much fun for non-Atlanta fans to watch. And because of fantasy, we care about not only our own team, our hometown team, but other teams as well. Like, this is a team that could take the NFL by storm, just from a standpoint of like, I love watching this team on Sunday, on red zone, whatever it is, because they are so much fun and they score so efficiently and they have so many talented playmakers on their team. Now I think it's about, and per Bet Online, our we love our partners there. It's about taking down the New Orleans Saints. And I feel like Josh and I have given them a lot of flack, but Nick has really been defending them recently. They are the odds-on favorite to win this division. And the Panthers
say don't sleep on the Panthers either.
Right.
Don't sleep on I'm not sleeping on anybody at this point. I think it's a very
Josh,
tough
didn't
division.
you say that the Bucs were going to win this division like 2 days
ago? They could. I mean, like, I'll get into that in a second. I was looking at the guy I kind of honed in on actually for his rookie year was Kareem Hunt. And what he did, he had 1,700 all-purpose yards, 13 on the ground, and 450 in the air. I hope Bijan's a little better. But the rest of that team was Tyreek Hill, 1,200 yards all-purpose, and then Travis Kelce, 1,000 yards all-purpose. But the quarterback wasn't Patrick Mahomes. The quarterback was Alex Smith, and they went 10-6. And this is I know I said the Bucs could win the division, and I kind of had the same feeling, but just on a bit more sadder scale than they do the AFC East. Like, the Bucs could be in first, they could also be in last, and I'm not like blown away. We've seen Baker Mayfield go to the playoffs. We've seen Todd Bowles be decent. We've also seen Todd Bowles be terrible. We've seen Baker Mayfield be terrible. So
you're going to get
exactly.
I
don't know.
I think at this point, that division, there's a lot more certain teams that are more of the favorite. I feel like the Bucs are just way too uncertain. You don't know how it's going to work out. It seems like Baker's more of a placeholder to see, if they wind up in the top 10, he just gets them through a season and they go out and get a quarterback next season. I mean, look, they're probably going to be all in on Caleb Williams, whatever they can do. If they have to trade up to get that pick, then that's probably what they're going to end up doing. That's probably my favorite to where he lands. But with Carolina, I mean, going out and getting Bryce Young and naming him the guy to kind of take over the kingdom. They went out and got Miles Sanders and, retooled the offense a little bit. And it was already a great defense. And then, of course, the Saints, they're not taking a step back. They're getting an upgrade at quarterback. Really the only thing that they kind of been needing for the last few years. I mean, the defense has always been amazing. And, you're not getting the same productivity out of Kamara that you should have, but that's also probably stems from the quarterback issues. If you don't have an effective pass game, how do you have an effective run game? And then obviously, hopefully getting a Michael Thomas back and then getting Olave a second year under him. I mean, I think that's the favorite.
I think Olave was awesome, right? As a rookie. He's one of my favorite, I think, young players in the league this year. And New Orleans definitely can't be slept on. Obviously, they've had like these weird little just like departures that have matriculated out of the organization. And I feel like everybody else in the NFC South is just waiting for that kind of the totality of these departures to finally hit the Saints and for them to go like, I don't know, 3-14. I mean, everybody has their fingers crossed in the division, Falcons fans most of all, for that to happen. But it's a big testament to that organization that they've continued to be the, preeminent team by and large in this division since really Sean Payton and Drew Brees arrived here. But the Panthers are that dark horse team. And I kind of feel like the Falcons have been the team that have slowly been building, waiting their turn for this moment when the landscape is totally barren and everything is in front of them. And then you've got a team like the Panthers that totally overhauls their coaching staff. And I love the staff they've brought in. I feel like everybody has really positive reviews for the staff that they're building there in Carolina, but no DJ Moore. The defense is great and solid and young, and they've invested in that, but they're growing up, they're getting older. They haven't turned into that dominant force, not even necessarily a force that like what we saw in New Orleans there with Cam Jordan leading the way and things like that. So this year, I think going in to the season, it's a little bit of a fool's mission to try to predict what could happen here in the NFC South. Because like Baker Mayfield could be good Baker, and maybe the infrastructure there in Tampa Bay is able to.
I think there's one thing you can predict. I think the prediction is that the Bucs are not going to win the division.
I feel
to say that they're not going to be the second best team or the third best team. They're not going to win the division. That's my
I feel
prediction.
Pretty safe in that.
That's all I can feel certain about.
I'll say this though, I'm more in on the Panthers sneaking up and winning the division and the Saints collapsing than I am like the Saints kicking ass and dominating. To me, I need to be sold more on Derek Carr again. Because the fact that he had the leading rusher last year and Devontae Adams, he had the leading rusher last year and Devontae Adams, they stunk.
Yeah.
It's not getting better. He didn't go to like a place with better weapons.
Well, he did go to a place with a much better defense, though. A much better defense.
Yes, their defense is a lot better, but also the Panthers defense is good too. Like the Panthers, there's some really good corners in the NFC South, sorry. AJ Terrell is great. Marshawn Lattimore is great. By and large, the Panthers can have the best one in JC Horn when it's all said and done.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, the Panthers, they built the defense under Matt Rule, who, he sucked as a head coach in the NFL, but they built that defense up. And they also got Miles Sanders was good last year. And the running backs who replaced McCaffrey, Foreman, and Hubbard, they ran the ball pretty well. And I know you lost DJ Moore, but DJ Moore is good. I like DJ Moore a lot, but he underwhelmed last year too. So can Mingo be good? Dion be good? Chark and these guys that they brought in, and I think Bryce Young, maybe he's too small, but maybe he's Bryce Young, bro. Maybe he kicks ass.
I like the fact that the Falcons get them in week 1.
I like that too.
It'll be good to, you get them just right out of the gate. All the jitters, all of that coming along with it. Let's get Bryce Young week 1.
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing about the Falcons when you're looking at just this division. And again, all of us are saying, it feels like a crapshoot to say okay, this team's for sure going to win it. But you have the most, in my opinion, you have the most continuity and you have the least injuries from your most talented players. And I think that's really, really important. I mean, you can nitpick the Saints, the Panthers, and the Bucs on a lot of different things in a way that you can't necessarily look at the Falcons roster and do the same thing. Now you can nitpick Desmond Ridder as much as you want. And again, Will's going to come back and say, sample size, let's wait and see. And I think I know what that's going to look like, but that doesn't necessarily matter because you have Taylor Heineke, who we believe is a winning player and, stepped up obviously massively for a not very talented Commanders team and did some really impressive things with them. So it's going to be a fun division. And it wasn't necessarily fun last year, but I think it's a lot more fun this coming season. And I'm excited about that. I'm excited for you, Will.
I mean, but you mentioned the injuries, and there's always the flip side of that coin, right? Because the Falcons have been really healthy, which has helped them be in these one-score games a lot the last couple of years. But, if injuries do pile up, that's a lot of what I think their free agency moves have been to guard against. A lot of these players, they haven't added the top tier outside of a Jesse Bates, but
the depth,
even extending Chris Lindstrom, like that was one of their like top tier moves. But that's not necessarily an addition. He's a great offensive lineman. Don't get me wrong. I'm super happy that he's still around. But a lot of the moves that they made were these depth kind of moves. Their defensive line right now, like you go back to the Eagles when they won the Super Bowl. Yeah, they had the star power there, but they also had just too deep on their defensive line where they could just bring in dudes and just keep them fresh. I kind of think that's the Falcons' approach. It's a little bit of a poor man's approach to that, but you get guys in there. I mean, Grady Jarrett, David Onyemata starting, but then Taquan Graham, who really took a step forward last year, Calais Campbell, Bud Dupree, Lorenzo Carter, Arnold Ebiketie. Like they just got a lot of, I think, dudes that are maybe B minuses at this point to just throw out there. But that's kind of writ large, the defense and the offense. And I think they're just hoping that with the attrition other teams are going to feel, maybe they're able to survive that and just fight and scratch and claw their way to a playoff run in a division that, a couple injuries here or there, and now everything is getting really threadbare for these teams.
Yeah, the Pats do it every year, bro. Defensive line depth, and they did it last year with the Eagles had it too last year when they went to the Super Bowl. All right, let's get into it. Let's do this thing. Are you ready? Are you guys ready? So Nick, Alex, I got a number in my head between 1 and 10. Nick, you can guess it. I'll be honest. Whoever guesses it first is the tiebreaker. Nick, your shot first.
7.
Nope.
3.
No.
That was such a quick no to Nick's 7 guess, which it's like it's one between 1 and 10. He has to guess something. You're just like, no, it's not.
No,
and
it's not 3 either. Nick, you want to give it another shot?
Well, who's closer, or is it
Nick?
Equally
Nick,
close?
Nick, you were closer. It was
There you go.
Nick wins.
There you go.
Yeah.
Nick is a tiebreaker.
Does Josh not know how to play the number game?
I don't know. I guess I was.
I usually go.
Nope, you idiot.
I usually go first shot.
Yeah.
Okay,
but
I'm
you're
thinking of a
supposed to
number
play
between
closest
1 and
to them.
100. Guess it. Guess the number. And if you don't get it, we'll keep playing until you actually guess it.
That's exactly how it
All right,
went.
guys. Let's give it a go. Falcons schedule. Nick, you are the tiebreaker. Let me zoom in a little more right here. Week 1 versus the Thurs at home. Will.
It's going to be a win. It's going to be a win.
Josh?
Yeah, I'm going to ride with Will. I like the continuity plays in week 1, and they come in prepared and they get it done.
Okay.
Wouldn't it be a curveball if I'm not even needed here? They're just on the same page the entire time.
That would be a massive 12-6 for sure. All right. Week 2 at home versus the Pack.
It's going to be a win.
I'm going to say this one is also going to be a win. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Nikki not needed Kreider over here. Okay, let's go. Week 3 at the Lions.
This will be the first loss.
I concur. On the road, heading to 2-1. Then they go to Jacksonville. 2 road games in a row.
Okay, 2 road games in a row at the Ville.
It's actually in
London. Yep.
Oh,
that's
in
right.
London calling.
Which is a home game for the Jags.
It is. It honestly
there are a lot
is.
of Jags fans there, and I'm going to say they're going to lose that game as well.
They are going to lose that game. Yep, we're on the same page.
Okay. They have 2 games in a row at home, week 5, week 6 at the Texans. Sorry, versus the Texans and then versus the Commanders.
Alex, you want to go?
Sure, yeah. I've got them beating both teams, Texans and the Commanders.
I think I've got them splitting this. I think I've got them going Houston, win, and then a loss to Washington.
Here he comes from the top rope.
I am flipping that, Will. I think it's going to be an L against Houston, but that doesn't count. So I'm going to go with a win against Washington.
So double win. Nice. Thank you for clarifying, Nick. I'm not gonna lie, I was in a bit of a blender right there. A lot of brains and ice going on. 4-2, week 6. At Tampa Bay versus the lowly, apparently, Buccaneers.
Well,
It's a win. It's a win for me.
Yeah, I can't zag now. They're going to beat the Bucs.
Okay. 5-2 at the Titans. Arthur Smith revenge game.
Oh, the fam's going to be at that one. The Smith fam will all show up in Tennessee. Will's already, he's locked into a win. I can see that face right there. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a win.
Battle of the running backs. That's going to be a really fun game. I'm going to make this interesting. I'm going to say that they're going to lose that game. Nikki?
Ooh. I'll give him a win here. I buy the revenge game.
Wow.
I think Arthur knows that offense pretty well and will scheme it perfectly.
Wow. 6-2 through week 8. FedEx, send them packing. Titans. Here we go. Off
You
to
can't count out a desperate Ryan Tannehill. That's what I'll say.
Hey, he might not even be there by then. Week 9 versus the Vikings at home versus the Vikings.
See, it's the tough spot that we're in right now because I feel like I'm more pessimistic, and yet here the Falcons are at 6-2, and it's like, all right, well, are they actually going to be 6-2? This is a loss to me. I mean, they got to lose some of these games, and Minnesota's definitely a good enough team, and I think if they're 6-2, this young team, like they'll need to come back to earth game, and this could easily be it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think battle of the USC wide receivers here, and Jordan Addison, rookie wide receiver in Minnesota, wins that one. And
even
so
though
do
the
the Minnesota
together.
Vikings. I know, right?
Nick threw up an L early. He made his presence known. I wasn't sure if that was an L for the Vikings or an L
It was
for me
L for
not
love.
knowing.
L for love.
L, or calling me a loser for not knowing the number game properly. At Arizona, Cardinals. They head to Arizona.
Yeah, that's
Alex,
a
what you
gimme.
got?
Yeah, the Cardinals want to lose that game, and the Falcons will take that dub, and they'll be grateful.
Yep, I agree.
Wow. The Cardinals are going to stink with a side of rice.
So what is that?
Okay.
7-3 going into the bye
They're
week?
7-3 into the bye week. And guess what? Everyone's a winner on the bye week. Then they head home into a divisional matchup. Could be for the division versus the Nolan Saints.
Will, go ahead.
This one's Saints games are always hard. Coming out of the bye, they'll win this one.
I'm riding. I think they're going to win this game as well. This one's at home. Okay.
Wow.
Then they head
Nick,
to New
Nick,
York.
if we gave you a trump card at the beginning, would you have trumped that one? We didn't. We didn't clarify that rule at the top, or did you kind of concur?
Yeah, I'd probably trump it.
Okay. Just curious. At the Jets, Rajas discount double check in December, the Meadowlands.
It's going to be a loss for me.
Yeah, it's going to be a loss for me, Doug.
Man, I almost said that too.
Three losses.
You said it. I had to say it.
3 losses. You're going back to Atlanta to face the Buccaneers at home.
Alex?
I mean, I already said it. This is going to be the worst team in the division. They're going to win this game. They're going to beat the Buccaneers. They're sweeping them.
I think they'll sweep them as well.
Nice. Okay, guys, this is it. They are 9-4 heading into maybe the girthier part of the schedule. It's a little tough. A lot of away games. At Carolina.
I think they'll lose this one.
Yeah, I agree. I think they split with Carolina and lose this one on the road.
Okay. Home on my birthday versus the Colts.
Happy early birthday.
Thank you.
Very early.
What's my half birthday coming?
Man, the Colts are. I mean, Anthony Richardson's playing at this point. I don't think it's going well for him, so I'm going to say this is a win.
Wow.
I'm gonna zag on this one, make it interesting, get Nick involved here. I think that if Anthony Richardson is playing this late in the season, he's actually got his sea legs underneath him a little bit, and this offense starts to surprise people. And it's an interesting wrinkle for any defense to have to deal with because of how talented that guy is. So I'm going to say that they lose this game. Nick, what say you?
Yeah, I think that's 3 games in a row with really competent running quarterbacks that they're going to have a tough time with. And I think this one's going to be a loss for them.
Nice way to point that out. Okay. Will, just so you know, that's Nick's second team is the Colts. So you
There
really
you
didn't
go.
have you didn't
No,
really
it's
have
not.
I didn't have a chance.
So
It's not his
their
second.
top
It's not his
five.
second team, but he does have an Anthony Richardson shirt jersey.
I do. I like Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, you picked up the Colts a little bit during Hard Knocks.
Yeah, you know my second
That's a
team.
that's a good enough reason though.
His
Raiders.
second team is the Saints.
Saints. Oh, Raiders. The Raiders.
Nick, we
It's
get
the
the ruling
Saints.
there.
It's the Saints.
Oh, it is it.
Can we
Okay.
get a roll?
Okay. Well, no. The suspense is killing us. All right. At Chicago on New Year's Eve day.
Alex, what you got?
I've got a win there. I know people are feeling kind of frisky about these Bears, but I'm not ready to buy in until I see it. I still think that they need to assess roster needs in the way that the Falcons did this offseason and really provide some depth on that team, which they don't have. And once again, they don't have a good defense.
So yeah, I really feel like these two games in particular, Colts and Bears, like I see them splitting one or the other. So since the Colts game didn't go, I'm gonna say Chicago. They work it out here.
I love getting Nick
10
involved.
wins. Well, you
10
guys
wins.
both got wins on that one, right?
No,
Mhm.
I picked. Oh, you picked a win too?
Yeah.
Yeah, for Chicago.
Yeah.
10 win
Wait.
season.
Wait. Sorry, I'm a little confused. Pan. Did you both pick Chicago to win or lose?
Win.
Win.
Okay, so so it's a win there. Wow. 10-6.
They beat
All
the
right.
Bears. Yeah, the Falcons
Okay,
beat the Bears.
Thank you.
Yeah,
At Saints.
Closing out the.
I'm having them split with the Saints on the
Same.
road in New Orleans.
Yeah. And if they're a 10 win team, then this is going to be a very meaningful game. And I'm going to have this as a loss.
Okay.
Same.
10-7. Wow.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
10-7.
I
That
mean,
is
realistically, like they have a pretty easy schedule.
very
in my
easy.
opinion.
That schedule's
So
a
easy.
joke. Sorry, it is. The schedule's a gong show.
Man, we're really
Yeah.
betting on Desmond Ritter to ball out this year.
If
I
Desmond
just don't know
Ritter,
if I'm sold on that.
Are we though? Are we? I mean, like this, we could just be betting on Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson and Cordero Patterson all running the ball really well. I mean, we've seen teams do that, and this is not a good division. So, I mean, and not a good schedule. Like, I don't know if the Desmond Ritter part of this is as crucial as it would be if they were in the AFC.
That schedule is so easy. He would have to absolutely queef Jenkins and blow and crap on the money for this team not to like at least win like 8 or 9 games. If they win less than 8 games, that's a disaster. Look, I didn't even look at their schedule before this. It's a joke. It's a really easy schedule. Will, give us your final thoughts. Where can the people find you? So on and so forth.
Yeah. So believe in Falcons. We'll be hitting it hard starting in not after 4th of July. So not next week, the week after that. I'm doing a really bad job of pitching myself. Sorry, guys, but do a much better job on the show with Ovi Mahaley, my co-host, former Falcons fullback, former Ravens fullback. So be on the lookout for that. You guys can follow me on Twitter at Will McFadden. But yeah, I mean, I think as we just saw, guys, like everything is there on the table for Atlanta. The division's down. The schedule's a joke. Like everything is there. If we're having this conversation after the season and they've missed the playoffs again, I think it'll be a much different tone here in Atlanta regarding Arthur Smith and Terry Fontenot because everything is on the table for them. I hope we're not having that conversation. I hope Desmond Ritter takes that next step and that Bijan is as exciting as he was at Texas and that the Falcons are relevant again because it's always fun kind of when I think Atlanta is in the mix a little bit, candidly, biasly, obviously. But yeah, it'll be fun.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Great stuff, dude. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Thank you guys for having me.
For you guys. Yeah, we're rooting for the Falcons, especially Bijan Robinson. Hands out there. Hit your free throws because they're free. Hook 'em horns, a little bit of that. We'll see you guys next time.